Man, my boy Beetlejuice got done in dirty. He was living a happy little life here, and then in comes the guy who crushed all the shit in the first episode of season 2 when it came to the whole fight scene that kind of ruined everything. What an episode. I mean, this is, once again, just kind of proves that ReZero improves week by week. I mean, last week with the whole Garf situation, turning a character that, many people love, but then there was a lot of people who also thought he was just an arrogant brat. Turned out he was an arrogant brat because he's a lot younger than a lot of people realize, and getting all that backstory, reshaping the entire community's opinion on a character you think you understand at face value. But then, this episode comes around, knocks on your door, takes a sledgehammer, breaks down that door and says, "Hey, Beetlejuice, crazy looking guy, a lot more than meets the eye here," and does even better than last week. And last week was already one of, if not the best episodes of ReZero. Like, the fact that this show can continue to take characters and ideas and turn them on their head to such a degree that you already like them usually at face value. I think probably most people can agree with this statement, that Beetlejuice as he stood, as he was in general, was fine as is. You don't have to give crazy backstories to lunatics in order for them to be memorable. I think most people were perfectly fine seeing the lunatic. The most people probably assumed was he always like this? And then this episode comes around and says he was a fine young man back in the day, and most likely the scene that we end this episode on was the beginning of the end and the start of the brain trembling. This was interesting, and I think it's really fascinating, especially because I saw some people point out, I think it was in episode 23, Amelia cries after killing one of the fingers from this man, and now you're kind of realizing that because her memories were kind of sealed away, the reason why she never wanted to actually hurt Beetlejuice was because this was a very precious person to her back in the day. Incredible stuff, I have to say. I love the idea of just having small Amelia just kind of be locked away in a cabin, eventually starts pushing away, and follows these little spirits, these little kind of glowing orbs of hope and optimism for a trapped girl, a girl in a cage. And as soon as I see the witch's cult clothing, I'm like, okay, we're immediately going to kick off into horrifying territory. But instead, you get this slow buildup of, every time they come in, they say, hey, is the seal still secured? Is everything good? Yes, it is. Okay, perfect. And here's some food, here's some clothing, is Amelia safe? Awesome. And it goes back and forth, and that's all we're really watching this episode. We're watching a small Amelia interact with a world that she's been sheltered from, and you knew eventually it was going to bite her in the ass. I think most people probably assumed when she got to the gate that, when she was pushing on it, something bad was going to happen, hell was going to break loose, and then that's how the whole Beetlejuice storyline would really get going. But instead, it's just a curious girl who doesn't understand what's happening, and she's interacting with the world truly for the first time in her life. The mother that she calls mother, Fortuna here, is not her biological mother, but by all rights, you can definitely say was her actual mother based on what we've seen with her life growing up. And honestly, as weird as it may seem to say, based on the short glimpses she had with this man, that was more of a father to her by the looks of it. And I think the fact that she now remembers this coming out of this trial, if she does succeed, it's going to be interesting to see what was the turning point for this moment, like what truly made him start trembling. Is it going to be something with the witches factor here, the sloth factor, like what's going on, the greed factor, like what's happening that turned him into the lunatic that we've come to, well, know and love, but also know and hate all at the same time. I mean, he's done some pretty despicable things. I mean, Twister Edition kind of speaks for itself. But I think what this episode does so well is rather than just reintroducing like something and like saying, hey, this is why this has been like this whole time. Usually I feel like authors, when they give you these kind of revelations, it feels like it was written after the fact. And what I mean is a lot of times an author, if they were to write a character like our favorite boy Beetlejuice over here, you would say, oh, he's a crazy character. And then eventually arcs down the line, the author found a clever way, or the author thinks is a clever way, to give him more importance to the story than just being a lunatic. But no, you can clearly tell that this was planned for a long time. The fact that in, say, episode 23 of season 1, or whatever episode it was, Amelia was crying after something bad happened to him, it shows that this was a long-term plan. And most people didn't see it coming, and when we did, we're questioning why is she crying, and most people would say, oh, Amelia just doesn't want to hurt people. That's probably why she's upset, right? The fact that it goes to such a degree to really formulate this like opinion for the viewer, saying, hey, whether you were a fan of this character or not, I think most people were probably a fan of the character just for the insanity. you now look at him in a completely different light, and no longer when we see this man are we going to be able to say, hey, you know, he's just a crazy lunatic. We're going to say, God damn, he was a normal, nice guy back in the day who just wanted to spend time with Amelia and probably who he wanted to call a wife, right? And it's interesting to see like how he wasn't allowed to see Amelia up until the point that she discovered him, and then how at that point Mother Fortuna had no choice but to allow it. And just like to see these wholesome family moments before you knew the episode was going to come crashing down. It's fascinating. And even more fascinating is the fact that Ekidana here is not being as hostile as I was expecting. I really figured that after last week's cliffhanger, it would be a much more like she would throw it in her face a lot more, but rather she was just a casual bystander watching and letting Amelia conquer her past, almost similar to how Subaru got his closure with his family. This is closure for her and like starting a new journey all at the same time. The show has done such a remarkable job at fleshing things out, and I can definitely see why people were saying that the second core of Season 2 would be even better than the first core. The first core was exhilarating, it was exciting, it brought up new ideas, it covered old ideas, especially with the Roswell content, right? But this season, in terms of like the second core here, it gives so much characterization to these characters that puts them into an even greater spotlight. I've constantly mentioned it, the fact that you can turn a cart driver into one of the best boys of this show. That's good enough for me to say you did something spectacular. But the Garf content, the Amelia content, the Beetlejuice content, the Subaru, like it just keeps coming. And I am so excited and so terrified to see everything unfold next week. I know people were expecting that this was the episode that the opening was going to play with visuals. Still no opening. I'm sticking by my theory that there is no visual opening for this. It's just the song itself. Probably not. There probably will be at least one episode where the opening does play. But the fact that I'm still getting my near 30-minute episodes of watching glorious shit unfold, it's amazing. It's fantastic. It's emotionally engaging, and it's painful because when people make a promise just before an episode ends and you know that promise can't be kept, that's the type of pain that's just so much worse than even Twister Rem Edition. I gotta be honest, because it's just, it changes everything. It changes your perception of what the show is and can be. And it just brings a giant grin to your face. And the fact that episodes like these can shatter and rattle the anime community, even more so than action-heavy episodes, gives me hope for this community, I gotta admit, I really do. It's just such a great show, and I don't think many people can disagree that ReZero has been a masterpiece for a while now, and by the end of Season 2, I don't think many people who are fans of ReZero will deny the fact that it's clearly a masterpiece, and we're gonna be wanting that Season 3 sooner rather than later. Let me know your thoughts and opinions on, once again, this extra long episode of ReZero. What did you think of the Beetlejuice reveal and how this man used to be a man, normal, wanting love and life, and now it's this? Like, let me know your feelings on this episode and how shocked you were at the many revelations we got. If you enjoyed the video, leave a like to show your support and hit that subscribe button if you happen to be new around here. So until next time, everyone, please take care and have a good one.